Please listen carefully.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Thoughts from Your Gal Pal podcast. This is the April episode, and today we have a special guest in the form of an April birthday, an Aries birthday, a fire sign, and it is somebody who it's been a running joke that we need to add them onto the podcast. In fact, I believe they've been mentioned 3 to 4 times in separate instances as a potential guest, and as a birthday gift and an inevitable conclusion, they are here today. So, without further ado, welcome to the podcast, my brother-in-law, my friend, Taylor Vannatta.
Hello, world. This is so exciting. I finally get to meet the gal with the thoughts. I've got this nice microphone. No ads on this podcast, but we get a little side swiping, a little we love it. Got the nice microphone out today. I got this from my brother. My brother bought this for music. He was like, "Yo, like Christmas, like let's play music." I was like, "All right, cool. I'll play some music." He's like, "I'm gonna get a microphone." I'm like, "Hang on now. How are we getting? How are we doing with that?" So,
did you ever make the Vannatta Family Jam Band album?
that was it. I think that was it. We recorded all those Christmas songs. I don't know if I think I still have those audio files. I'll have to dig those up.
Did you ever do anything with it?
I think I cleaned them up and like cut out some garbage, and we recorded everything on one long take. So I kind of chopped it up for different songs. I ought to post that somewhere. I don't know where I'd do that.
You could make it a Christmas gift for your family. It's a real ode to the family sing, which has Maggie told you about the family sing on the Mitchell side?
No, what's the family sing?
The family sing is on my mom's side of the family. So my mom's technically stepmother, but the person who she calls mom, was an extremely talented person, period. But she had amazing piano and organ skills. So every Christmas, the tradition has faded since her death in 2015, 2016. Sorry, Mom. They would gather all of that side of the family and they would sing songs. I only attended a few because we weren't up in New Hampshire, but there's so many epic home videos of this woman was so amazing. You could literally say, play a jazzy rendition of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and she would play it without
On
music.
the piano?
I mean, she's just unbelievable on the piano. And I remember my mom and Aunt Peggy were these just kind of this little dynamic duo, like an abbreviated Von Trapp like family. They just sung all the time together, and that's why my mom still sings. So I'm surprised Maggie's never told you about that.
I think she's told me about it a little bit, but I've never heard about the like just totally talented sort of mom. But I think I just love getting a bunch of people singing. My brother Britton loves it, and it was fun at one time. It's fun. I think everybody kind of expects a lot of the people who can play any instrument, so they're all like looking at you to like start the next song, and that kind of freaks me out a little bit. But I'm kind of like, what do you guys want to play?
This is an interesting segue in a sense that I realized many of your hobbies start with the letter B. B as in Bravo.
Oh, interesting.
When I first met you, banjo and bass, beer brewing, board games, books. Isn't that funny?
I know. It's crazy. I'm
sure I'm missing several of them.
I have too many hobbies. I'm a serial hobbyist. I will, if you like convince me, talk to me at a party one time, I'm going to be totally in. I'm like $300 in. I'm all in. Let's do it. I've got to get a handle.
So do you think that you would fall victim to a Ponzi scheme?
Probably.
Because you're easily swayed?
Probably. I got a hilarious story about that, actually. One time this like scammer called me at work and was like, "Hey, what was the story? This was during."
Oh my god, I remember.
Do you remember this? Okay, so this is during.
Yes, but tell the story.
This is during COVID, like not the height of COVID, but like a little after the height. Everybody was still like weird, and things were weird, and everybody was trying to crank up like normal life, but like in a safe COVID way. It was very annoying and whatever. So this number calls me and is like, "Hey, I'm with Fulton County Police Department. My name is Officer So and So. We what was the situation? It was something like very reasonable. Like you had missed jury duty. Like you had missed it. We had sent you a letter in the mail and you never like came. So we've got to like."
Wait, did they know your name?
Yes. They're like, "Is this Taylor?"
Point of information.
They're like, "Is this Taylor?" And like, I don't know about this stuff. Maybe I'm not a good citizen. I've done jury duty once. Didn't get called like everybody else, but I just they called me and I was like, well, I'm at work. I don't know. I was like in the wrong frame of mind. They were like, yeah. You need to come down to the station and we'll do bit of paperwork and we'll figure it out. It'll be fine. I was like, holy shit. And I was like, kind of trying to call his BS. I was like, like, could you tell me again where that is? And they're like, yeah, so and so, blah, 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 road. And I looked it up on my computer. It was the Fulton County Police thing. And I was like, golly, like, I guess that, like, I don't know. I don't know Officer so and so personally, but like, I better do it. So I'm like, I tell my boss, Andrew, I'm like, like, they're gonna, like, I don't know, fucking arrest me or something. So I guess I got to go down. So I leave work. This is the funniest thing. It wasn't a busy day at work, I guess. I leave work and I'm like, all right, bye, I guess. Gonna go figure this out. I get down there and I call him back in the car, hands free only, in Georgia, of course. And I call him, that's right. And I call him and I'm like, all right, dude, I'm on my way, Officer Walker or whatever. And he's like, okay, but real quick, can you got to pay in cash because this is like weird COVID times. And I was like, okay, like kind of weird.
Pay for what? Like a fine? A fine for missing jury duty.
Yeah, some kind of fine for something. I don't remember. It was obviously BS. That's spoiler. It's all BS. So I'm like, I go to like an ATM. I'm like, all right, I'll get cash anyway. And he's like, draw out like all this money. And I'm like, okay. So I draw out like a little bit. I know this is so wild. I'm not normally like this. And then
How much money, Taylor?
let me think. It was a couple hundred. I think it was a couple hundred.
Okay, so we're talking 3 digits.
Yeah.
Not just $50.
Yeah. And I was like, like cash, I don't know, like I'll get it. It's not costing me a bunch, ATM fee or whatever. And then he was like, okay, go to Kroger and buy some gift cards. And I was like, all right, this guy. So I went back to work and I had all this cash in my in my wallet.
So it was the gift cards. That was the straw that broke the camel's
they always
back.
ask for gift cards, I guess, because it's like a laundering thing that they can trick people. But yeah, I felt really dumb. I feel really dumb.
It happens to the best of us. I had a Gumtree scam when I was selling my camping stuff in Australia. I lost like $400, but I was so desperate to sell my stuff because I was flying home, and I tried to go through my bank to get the money back because it was $400, and they said, no, this is a known scam. Like, Google this script
Yeah.
that Gumtree is like Craigslist, and it is verbatim. And that's just a lesson in life.
It's
That was
scary, They can do those, like, the email ones are really scary because they can do those like everywhere. You just get some like chat GPT thing to write the text and it's pretty convincing, So, but the gift cards, never trust the gift cards.
So, are you down for this next vocal warm up?
Oh, vocal warm up.
You didn't know about this. We already did a vocal. We've kind of already talked. You're a natural, Taylor, but I want to get your take on something. And this vocal warm up is informed by you in the kindest way possible, being an opinionated person.
Okay.
And it's the good kind of opinionated. When you ask somebody like, what do you think about this? And they're like, oh, looks great. No, that's fine.
That's exactly how I
oftentimes
feel. I love that you pick up on that.
I hate
because
that.
I always tell people about that.
Yes.
I'm like, hey, like, tell me about what you want on this. Like, what do you want for food or whatever? That's like the stereotypical thing. But like, what's your like kind of favorite movie stuff? It's like, just tell them what your thought is. It can be wrong, it can be whatever. Yeah.
Give specific, I think by the fact that you having specific feedback on things, and I'll give an example, it actually shows a level of care higher than, oh, it all looks good. Because if it all looks good, you either are scared of me for some reason and scared of giving feedback, or you didn't look at it closely enough in order to give feedback, even if you give 1 point. So this idea popped in my mind because when you and Maggie came in September to Chicago and I was going over the wedding ceremony for Alexa and Danny, you had a lot of feedback for me, and I am somebody who is getting used to receiving feedback better, and it made for the ceremony to be a lot better.
Yeah.
And I was really appreciative of you. So with that in mind,
Okay.
I want to just do a few social cues or like social things that are not necessarily wrong or right, but I want to know your opinion on it.
Okay.
Quick 30-minute boom, boom, boom as we go through it.
30-minute, huh?
Now, this is going to be a 45-hour long podcast.
Hey, listen, we're breaking ground here at the gal thoughts from your gal pal. So
let's start with talking on the phone on a train or a plane. I know you don't take the train as much, but what is your thoughts on that?
no, I take
Is there ever a circumstance when it's appropriate?
Yeah, so train, plane, bus, that sort of thing. You're with other people you don't know. I I got to be honest, I think I'm into it. I'm fine with it. I'm cool with it. And
You're into
but see,
it.
here's the caveat. Here's the caveat. If you
Okay.
pull out your phone and you start talking on the phone, and I know everybody's got their headphones and stuff, but let's
Okay.
imagine the hand to ear situation. Everybody in that bus is going to hear your conversation. And you have to be ready for that. You have to be ready for that. If you come in, like and on top of that, you have to give me something. That's my caveat. If you're gonna talk on the phone, if you're gonna talk on the bus, yeah, you've got to give me something. You got to give me a little show, a little production, a little something. If you answer the phone like, "Hey, this is Bob from sales." Oh, well, like that's I don't give a shit. That's fine. Do not answer the phone in that case. But if you answer the phone, "Hey, this is Derek. What do you mean you took a pregnancy test?" I'm in. I'm so in. I'm grabbing some popcorn. Everybody's putting their phones away. Everybody's closing their books, putting
They're
the
like
newspaper
taking
out,
their
and
headphones
everybody's like,
out.
they're putting their little horn up to their ear. They're like, "Hang on now, hang on now. Tell me more about this." So that's what I need from someone. If they're gonna answer the phone on a bus, on a train, even on a plane, like I don't know about the cell signal, you got to give me something.
I'm actually of the same mind as you. And there are some okay, this we're going way over, but who cares?
Who cares?
What are your thoughts on a speakerphone conversation on the phone?
Again, you're
Do you
giving
draw the line there, or
no
does
no
if
no. I don't draw the line there. What you're doing there is you're taking this from like community play to Broadway. You're taking this to like, hey everybody, this is worth listening to. And you have to accept that social contract and give me the real deal.
okay, moving on, kind of different. What do you feel how do you feel about shoes in the house or people who are very anti shoes in the house? Thoughts?
I think it's a little excessive. Like, you're not a Japanese monk.
I think you're culturally
You're not a
insensitive.
Japanese monk in a lot of ways. But if you want to take it on, look, it's your house, your rules, but also Mikasa Sukasa. You know what I'm saying? I think you've just got to
Mm,
you've got to, first of all, you have to tell me. So many people have this like little foot
of
area. I
course, yeah.
walk in their place first, maybe like I'm just kind of first through the door or whatever, and I'm like, "Oh, like what's in the kitchen? Like Gray House, blah blah." And they're like taking their shoes off. I'm like, "Oh shit! I just dredged in all this mud onto your floor, and you didn't warn me.
Are you always
You
walking
didn't
through
warn me."
mud?
Well, I guess that's the implication, right? Because if I had clean shoes, we would never take them off,
Mm,
right? That's how I operate. We're a
mm.
shoes inside kind of house, but
My thing is if you have a dog, there is no point in having no shoes in the house because your dog is always tracking
that's
shit in.
true.
So it's like,
But funny that I have a counter to that. Maggie and I are hilarious because we now Jessie has run basically out to she has run out to the mud a lot, and so we have taken to wiping her feet
mm,
off with baby wipes. I don't know if that's good for her feet, but I imagine they're good
yeah.
for her feet. So it's we have the opposite of what you're imagining.
A few more, quick ones. Okay, what do you call your in-laws? What are your thoughts on what the appropriate way to refer to your in-laws is? Or is it a case by case?
I I think Virginia and Greg are casual enough that they're Virginia and Greg. I'm not a fan of the like cross spouse mom and dad referring. Like if you refer to your in-laws as mom and dad, oh no, honey. No, no, no. Unless you did not have parents growing up, that's a no-go. That's a red flag, bright red flag. So that's kind of how, honestly, that's the short answer. Yeah.
I like the short answer. When you greet a new male for the first time, for example, like one of Maggie's high school friends' husbands or boyfriends, do you go in for the hug or do you handshake?
I think the handshake is cool in a formal setting. Everybody's got nice clothes on. That's the way I roll. If it's someone I've heard of a lot, I don't know. There's a level of, I think the hand clasp and the pat on the shoulder is such a like guy thing. That's probably acceptable anywhere. Like if everybody's drunk and having a good time, that's what's up. That's what's up. The handshake, no, no, no. Handshake is more respectful. Respectful. So that's where I'm at. If I'm at a wedding or something, it's cool. Obviously, if they're older, like respectful. Yeah, hi. Give me your hand. Let me shake it.
How do you get out of a long conversation with an elder family member or just an elder in general?
Ooh, that's a toughie. You know, you absolutely cannot make it your decision. It has to be an external force that is coming in to just take you away from
Mm.
grandma. So I'm going with, technology is an easy one. You're like, oh, I, it, I, I think you're breaking up. Like, that's a good one.
Okay, so I'm talking about in person, like at a Thanksgiving dinner.
Oh, oh no.
Because
Oh
then external
no.
force could be like, oh, I need to go help mom in the kitchen with the mashed potatoes, or I need to go help with the
Yeah,
baby.
this got a
That's my
lot
way.
harder. This got a lot harder. I think here's what I would do. I would get a sibling beforehand and just say, "Hey, look, if I give you the wink, you come grab me for something." You can set that up. If you're able to plan ahead, you're like, "Look, Aunt so and so is going to talk forever with me specifically, individually, alone, and I need you. I don't often need you, my sibling, but I need you this time." That's what I would. That's what I would set up. I could do that with David. I could do that with Maggie. I If you don't have that, you don't have a sibling or a friend that will do that for you, or if you're just worried that they will leave you to the sharks, I would probably, you could do the fraternity sorority rush trick. If you don't know this fraternity sorority rush trick, you have a glass half full at all times, so that if the conversation sucks, you just drink it quickly, chug it if you have to, and say, I gotta go get another
That's a new
drink.
one for me.
Really? That's new to you?
In sorority rush, it's so formal. You come
Oh,
in and you bump, and I'm really good at bumps now. I'm really good at introducing people, and if someone comes up to me, I say, "Oh, hi, this is Taylor. He's my brother-in-law. We were just talking about awkward conversations with our grandma. Oh, Ben, he is my coworker. I don't know if you like." So he immediately knows who you are and what you were talking about, so he can
so
join in.
good
I
at
do that all the
transitions.
time.
You should do a podcast.
Wow. Aw.
I think yeah, you've got to have that half cup. So yeah, half filled cup of beverage of choice, and
Mm.
say, Grandma, I love you. I'm gonna cherish you as long as you're around, but I really need some more sweet tea.
Moving into the meat of this conversation, or maybe not the meat, I think the beginning part is often fun and maybe the most replayed on YouTube. Who knows? I don't look into analytics. I don't care
Who
that much.
knows?
But we're talking about moving into fantasies. What's your fantasy, Taylor?
My
Don't answer that.
fantasy?
Please
Oh,
don't answer that. I don't know if being a fantasy reader is a more recent addition into your not arbitrage, hobby arsenal, hobby selection, but walk me back to Taylor in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Were you one of those people that did the accelerated reader, or were you more like, I only read one page a day because it's required by class? Like, where were you on the scale of reader to
no
non
way.
reader?
Total reader. I was AR all the way. I
Okay.
loved it.
I loved AR.
Yeah, it's great. Like it was
Oh,
like you could just, it was relaxing to me. It was fun. I was not one of the cool kids, and definitely in middle school, definitely, mostly not in high school, and it like just being having that outlet to kind of relate to people was really fun and really nice. I was a big like Greek myth kind of nerd in middle school, and like, I was one of those kids that loved it, so I just loved those stories in the beginning. Yeah, I read a ton of adult fantasy, or sorry, young adult fantasy uh, in middle school and kind of stuff. Shout out to Christopher Paolini for Eragon, best series of all. I read a bunch of
Oh my
minor ones.
gosh.
Did you read those?
No, but I know exactly what the book covers looked like because all the weird kids in my honors classes read them.
they were
Sorry.
they were really good.
They would
Yeah,
be
and like
hiking them around.
no, it was
I couldn't
good. It
get
was
into
good
it.
stuff. And like, obviously worth mentioning like Harry Potter all the way. Everybody read those.
Of
That was the
course.
big AR. That was the big AR like banker. You could get a ton of credits for it, and like most people could even watch the movie and answer most of the questions. But then they got smart halfway and switched it, and it was very dramatic for our middle school.
Knowing your history a little bit more about books, in your own words, what do you think makes for a good fantasy book or a fantasy series?
My mind has changed. I did that all in middle
And it
school
can
and
evolve.
like
Like,
kind
what
of
did
high
you like when
school.
you were 13 and what do you.
Yeah. I'll give you the breakdown. So big things for me when I was in middle school, like for most like young boys, like being, and I think most children, like having more power than you literally have in the world is pretty important, right? So like taking on responsibility, being a part of a bigger picture and having power in that bigger picture is like obviously pretty awesome. I've thought this through a lot recently. I was telling Maggie about this. I read a lot of those books and
Can I just say the one thing that I believe in working with children, the thing that every child wants is two things: attention and autonomy. They want dedicated attention toward them and they want as much control or power as they can handle. That's
100%.
my 2 cents. Continue.
No, kids want that.
So
And
I
like,
think that sense of like being power taken away, given imagining a world where they can be more have more agency than what they have in the
that's
real
right,
world.
100%. And like, honestly, most people from any age are probably feel that way. That's how it was for me. And for like a boy, is like you watch Lord of the Rings. Like my older brothers were huge into Lord of the Rings, and I've actually never read those books. I've read the Hobbit ones, but I never read the Lord of the Ring books. I should. But like, it was just awesome. Like doing awesome epic things with epic people and epic things was really fun, and that was really cool. And so there's like there's a common theme on a lot of those where there's this like coming of age story where this person, usually a tween, right, gets figures out magic, learns about the world, and goes on it. So I think that's what makes a really great young adult book, to bring it back to your question, for adult fantasy, which is real for people out there. It's not just for kids, it's very much real.
Absolutely.
And what makes those, I don't know. I think it's a personal preference, like a lot of adult things. But for me, it's always about, is this world, is this whole, maybe magic system or however that's framed, is it like interesting? Is it surprising? Is it complex enough to like really relate to the plot? I think that was what turned a lot of people off from Lord of the Rings, was that the magic was not very consistent. Like it was fun and epic, and like people would pretend, the characters would kind of like pretend like they knew what was going on. But like as a reader, you're like, oh, okay, they can actually just, cast a spell for that. All right, problem solved. Like it was kind of random and kind of weird. And I think for a lot of
There
fantasy,
weren't enough parameters to say
yeah,
to see like this problem can't be solved. Like as a reader, as you understand the boundaries that the magic in that fantasy world, where there are end limits, you because if you think that like, oh, they can just come up with a spell to solve everything, then there's really no struggle
right.
because oh, they can just correct it with something. There has to be limitations to whatever power or magic that the characters have to create any sort of one relatability and two conflict in the
That's right.
story.
It's like I need to know the limits of what's possible here. Otherwise, anything goes, and I'm just along for the ride. Yeah. So, like, I think that's what makes a great adult fantasy series, books, whatever.
If you could sum it up, who is your favorite fantasy character?
A specific character as a very relatable one. If you've ever seen Game of Thrones, Tyrion Lannister is a really special character to me. He has a long story ahead of him. From the very beginning, you learn his character. He has a long story through all of the books. That was another book I read in high school. So I was that kind of nerd. Man, I loved Game of Thrones. I remember when those first episodes came out. Do you know what year those came out? I have no idea.
Ooh, I'm going to guess 2011,
Should we look that
2012
up?
was the start.
Let's see. Game of
Yeah, we should.
Thrones first episode. All right, the first episode came out in 2011.
Woo! Man, I'm good.
Nailed
I'm
it.
good.
Nailed
Okay.
it. So I saw that in high school, and I was like, and I don't even know why my parents put that on. They were like, "Yeah, this will be fine." My mom was so funny. She's like, she would say when we watched that show, and the sex scenes would come up, which of course happens in the very first episode, and we're like in high school. She would say, "Cover your eyes." Cover your eyes, and we're like sitting on the couch with our eyes covered, and my brother David's like cracking his, and he's like checking it out. It's so funny. But she would let us watch it. Then as soon as there was a boob or anything, she'd be like, "Cover your eyes."
Hey, she had to protect her
That's
boys.
right.
I have a side question for that about sex. I framed this as the ACOTAR discussion, the Court of Thorns and Roses.
Yes.
Do you think there is value in having, I'll ask you two versions of this question. One, do you think there's value in having romance within a fantasy book? And another layer to that is, do you think there's value in having explicit sex scenes in a fantasy book? Or do you think you could go either way? What are your thoughts on that?
So I read Akatar. I think that one's like a pretty popular series for a lot of people.
Extremely
Popular, right? So to me, I'm first of all, I think there's a place for it, 100%. And the reason for that is there's some people who it really does drive their interest, is just like getting to the next sex scene, like the context behind that, the story, the characters, that whole thing. And that's fine and exciting. Who was I talking to? I was talking to somebody. I think it was Emma. I was pitching her a different series, Emma Mahevik, and she was like, "Is there any like smut? Is there any like sex stuff?" And I was like, "No, there's absolutely no sex stuff. I'm just gonna warn you because we had just gotten off of Akatar. There's none of that." And she was like, I might skip it."
A girl who knows what she wants.
I know, and some people do, absolutely.
I do fall into that camp a little bit more. I'm reading Crescent City right now. It's taking me months. Please don't judge me. But it's definitely more of a YA fantasy, and there's just so much flirting but no sex, and I'm just like,
yes,
I need. So I've heard that books can. I'm really into alliteration today. I don't know why. Autonomy, agency, your hobbies being bees. This one's is the E's.
It's an alphabet soup out here.
Oh my gosh, I want to eat that now. So books are meant to educate, entertain, or escape. Fantasy is super escape and entertain, but for me, a huge element of entertainment is sex scenes.
Yeah.
I guess escapism too. It's such a fantasy. I think that really erotic sex scenes in fantasy can really stretch the limits of kink perhaps, and I think it's an added layer of fantasy to fantasy books as a genre.
Yeah, it totally plays into this like the context is important, right? It's like, oh, these two shouldn't be together because they're like an elf and a human or whatever, or they're of different classes in whatever society, or that kind of context is exciting and fun for people, and it definitely like taking you out of it. The question of like romance, 100%, you have to have some romance. I think that's a part of the human experience. So as part of like a character development, I think some people overdo it, but I think it's good to have it in a lot of places. And some people do it in a very what's the word? I don't know, just common way. Cliche is the word, and that always sucks. And honestly, the sex scenes can be like that too. I know Akatar had some kind of a lot of adjectives and adverbs were reused. If I have to hear one more rippling muscles again, I'm like so over it.
A low roar.
Yes, a growl or something. It's like, come on, open up a dictionary, please. And maybe that's the answer.
I also feel like Sarah J. Maas is a queen of world building and tension building, but her vocabulary is not good.
Yeah, so
I know that I'm not a writer. I shouldn't say that, but that has been I will read everything she puts out, but I'm not going to be wowed by the prose.
You're done for.
But I love the stories, and
You're so done for. The
canceled.
Akatar fans are coming after you after this. Hit up the YouTube comments.
I'm canceled in every episode for different reasons.
Yeah, I mean, she's great. I haven't read any others besides her, so maybe that's the answer. If you're into smut, check out different authors and that might be your answer.
So you mentioned that you tried to pitch Emma on a new series. So I'll call this question the Influence Me, Taylor. Influence Me, Taylor. What are some, maybe give me one or two series that you've read recently or books that you think pitch it to me as what I'm getting out of these two series? Take it away.
Okay. I would 100% pitch Akatar. I would pitch Akatar to anybody who's thinking about fantasy. I know the smut thing is the thing, but it's really easy to read and it's really popular. That would be my first like general person. If you're not like into fantasy, like jump on the train. There's gonna be a Hulu or HBO or whatever some production
There
coming.
is, yeah. Not only that, but a lot of people have read them, so there can be a sense of community, like
Yeah,
virtual book
yeah, there's
clubs.
art out there. There's stories, side stories, like a whole thing. It definitely that's my general person who's not like a reader kind of pitch. Definitely, if for someone who's like looking for a good one, I think this series and this author is going to be the next big thing. If you have heard of it, the author is Brandon Sanderson, and his books. He has a couple of series. So he has a series called the Stormlight Archive is a series, and then he has another series of Mistborn. Okay. What's interesting about it, and this is kind of the stuff getting back to what I love about fantasy books, I love a huge world that has been changed by the magic or is different from the magic. So this man is, first of all, he's a writing animal. So you will not get the Game of Thrones treatment where the books will go unwritten. Amazing pitch. Like that for sure sold me at first because I had just gotten off of Game of Thrones, which was terrible. So he's got this world building. This world building stretches beyond different book series. So the Stormlight Archive series is in the same universe as the Mistborn series. And this magic is, like we've talked about, like pretty limited. It has some pretty strict rules. He's got this like series. It's the subgenre of fantasy to me that I don't know. There's probably a science fiction word for it, but it's like the forces at work here are so much bigger than you could possibly participate in. It's almost like this super fantasy thing. It's kind of like, you see Titans and like eventually your character can like level up basically to use a D&D video game term, like level up to get to god mode and take them on. Like that's fun, but like these people are untouchable and you will get crushed, and like people do get crushed, and that's really fun, and the characters are just phenomenal. I know a big thing that I definitely tell people like for fantasy is that like you often get the white guy, western white guy treatment where like all the women are princesses and all the guys are like knights. This definitely flips it on their head. So in Stormlight Archive, in the world, like only the women can read, the men don't read. It's like not acceptable even in the society and all the way down to the characters. Like the women are badasses. There's definitely different sexual preference folks, sexual minority folks, which is different for fantasy. And the author Brandon Sanderson has like been open about like, I've had some old books that I kind of stuck to the norms, and I'm trying to break out of it. And so he's like very much, I mean, he's a white guy from I think Utah or Nebraska. So he's like, I'm limited. I'm limited in my experience in a lot of ways, which is fine. But he's like, I'm learning. I'm trying to figure it out and navigate it. So that's my big pitch for people.
Yeah, can you give us quantitative data as to how many books are out / how many books there are predicted to be? So what would be the time estimate?
All right. So if you start now, you're hopping in the meat of it, and this is a good time to start, I think. So first of all, you have the Mistborn series, which is its own track. Okay, there's a trilogy to start with. That's a great one to start with. Then there's another trilogy on that track with a fourth one added on. So there's 7 books on the Mistborn track. Okay. On the Stormlight, I don't know how many he plans for the Mistborn track. I think there's going to be 10 total, 9 total. Don't quote me on it, but 9 total. On the Stormlight track, you have basically 5 books, of which he's written 4. He's writing the 5th now, and he'll probably be done 2024. The fifth one, he's doing those 5 books. It's not a trilogy, but like a 5-book series. Is there a word for that? There's a pentagy. Pentagy. I'm
Quantity.
inventing the word now. I'm inventing pentagy
Okay.
now.
TM.
So there's
TM by
TM
TD.
TM. So that's a 5-book series, and then there's gonna be like a kind of a break, and then it will be the same kind of world series, 5 more, which are 10 total.
2 final questions on this influence me section. One, is there any smut in this series, or is that the kicker?
In my opinion, there's good romance. There is definitely not any sex or smut. 100% none of that. Until further notice. I don't know. Maybe he'll
Okay.
write it in the future. Maybe, but not right now.
And number 2, are you sponsored by Brandon Sanderson?
No, no, I'm just obsessed. I promise you, if you know anybody that has read these, they are obsessed. Maybe I'm like in the bubble, but I'm like, everybody is like, there's totally going to be a series. There's totally going to be like a movie adaptation. And what's amazing about it is I do not want them to make it because it can't live up to it.
Well, Taylor, I'm glad this day finally came to fruition. And I think if you're watching the video, the sun has set as I have recorded this, so I will set the sun on this interview.
Thanks for having me and giving me your thoughts.